Ely City Council, special meeting, October 20th, 2021.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have the roll call.
Mayor Robertson,
Present.
Councilman Blangus,
Present.
Councilman Carson is not present, Councilman Spear,
Here.
Councilman Allworth,
Present.
Councilwoman Williams Harper is not present. City Clerk Lee and City Treasurer HR Director Trask are on by phone. City Attorney Cahoon is on by Zoom. Public Works Supervisor Craycraft.
Here.
And that's all.
Okay, thank you. With that, we'll move on to item 2, public comment. Please state your name for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and Councilman. I have a lot to do. And there's something truly. For the record, my name is Donna Bath. I'm a citizen of Ely and one of the nearest property owners in the Duck Creek Basin to the proposed project on your agenda today. Our home is less than 3/4 of a mile from the proposed project. I have many concerns regarding this project and have been watching closely since early 2019. I've attended every notice of local meeting either by person or by Zoom. I've obtained and kept copies of all handouts provided at the various meetings regarding the project. The developers nor their contractors have ever reached out to us as an affected property owner. I've had to spend hours trying to keep up with what they're doing. It seems that their plans and their documentations and their messages are forever changing, and we should all be concerned. I would like to share some of my concerns with you today in the form of questions and bullet points. I've added copies of some of the public documents I have gathered for this project for your review and your consideration. I hope this information will inform and assist you. As an affected, interested party, has the City of Ely been in close contact with the developer, R Plus and the contractor, HDR? Or were you invited to be a cooperating agency on this proposed project? Was the city offered an opportunity to comment on the EA, or were you noticed at the comment period for the EA, environmental assessment? Did the city receive a copy of, and have you had an opportunity to thoroughly review the EA or the ROD, which is Record of Decision? Was the city notified by the developer that they plan to ask the FERC permitting process and the BLM EA process to be expedited, and these requests were granted? Did the developer honor the request to have the city to have more public hearings and make a bigger effort to keep the public informed? Were other property owners close to the project on the Steptoe or Valley or Duck Creek side consulted or asked to comment on the EA by the contractor or the developer? Upon checking, the legal property owner of the project's proposed 80-acre man camp laydown yard, nor the railroad have written agreements in place, nor have they given permission to cross their property with heavy equipment, nor utilize their property as a staging area. One party did give HDR permission to do a plant study on their private property. The rest of my comments are in writing, and you can, if you have any questions, you can ask them.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment?
Just for the record, Councilwoman Williams Harper has joined the meeting.
Thank you. For the record, my name is Richard Howe. I'm a citizen of Ely, and I'm also on the Lifetime We're here, White Pine County Commission has unanimously voted several times to give support to Arc Plus Energy, and prior to that, to the Grid Flex, which is part of it. This project is a benefit for the generations and generations to come. To diversify our economy throughout the county of White Pine, the city of Ely would be impacted by new residents, possibly new business. We are sitting here, we've been a mining company for over a century. Mining is still our number one, but we need to diversify our economy based on the 1983 when we saw an exodus, when Kennecott shut down, and there was an exodus of good citizens from White Pine County without any opportunity for another job, moved to Elko, to a lot of different places. A lot of good people that we had that were raised here, generations, had to move. There was no other place to work. Arc Plus Energy has had several public hearings. They've had an open house at the convention center. They've laid out their plans. They've answered every single question that can come. This is a long process. This item on your agenda today is to ask the city for the right of way to allow the equipment to go up and do the drilling. There's a lot more involved in this. The construction is probably not till late 24, early 25. It will be huge. It's a $2.1 billion project, one of the largest the state's ever undertaken. It's a green energy plan, which is a benefit to everyone. It's the president and his party are really pushing green energy. This is an underground power facility. There are no lights exposed. Once it's done, it's all underground. But Arc Plus has been a very good citizen. They've come to every meeting. They've answered all of our questions. We're trying to make White Pine County have more life than mine life. We need to have a long term. This project is a possible 100-year project. It's going to benefit with power, with energy, the economic impact through property tax and whatnot. It'll be huge, up to $13 million a year to the county. We have different entities that need funding. We have a budget to keep. This project is going to go a long ways to doing it. We had in the early 1980s, we had a coal-fired power plant with LA Water and Power, and it was welcomed by the citizens. It was going to take a lot more water. Coal, which would have been emissions, it was shot down by a former senator in the United States Senate, but it was welcomed by the citizens of White Pine County back in the early 80s. It fell through, and a lot of people were disappointed. This is an opportunity to let White Pine County, and even the citizens, everybody, to have a future. Our kids who are now in school, let's say the mine goes down in 10 years, so we've got a third grader. What's he going to do? He's going to move. But with opportunity, and this project creates opportunity, and it's going to have construction, it's going to have a lot of other stuff. And I just want you to know that the White Pine County Commission voted unanimously. We stand by Arc Plus Energy and their project, and the impacts it's going to have for this county are long term. Thank you very much for your time.
Any other public comment?
For the record, my name is Cody Aldridge. I sit as the chairman of the Water Advisory Committee for the county. And instead of up here, with a lot of what ifs, which every project is going to have a lot of what ifs, but the item at hand right now that I see that needs addressed is, even though the study's coming, we are in a drought. The mine's going to stop dewatering, and in the state engineers measuring of the wells in the Steptoe Valley, we've seen a stabilization of the wells right here in Ely because of the dewatering of the mine. But if you continue looking down the valley, all of our water here flows north. There's a continued decline in our water table as it is. So the idea of, at the end of the day, it's not going to be using a ginormous amount of water. It's another straw in an already depleting resource that we have. And that's the issue that the city needs to look at. The city's taking water out of the same aquifer that I irrigate with, that everybody in this valley drinks with, and I think that is something that the city needs to look at explicitly when it comes to this project. It is the water. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Good afternoon. I'm Mark Bassett, President of the Nevada Northern Railway Foundation. And for the record, I want to state that the foundation is neutral on this project. The foundation partners with the county and the city on developing the railroad. What the foundation is concerned with is protecting the railroad and the railroad right-of-way and how the drilling impacts that. So that is our concern. Thank you.
Anyone else for public comment?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, on your agenda item 3-1, you're to consider possible approval of an easement agreement between the City of Ely and R+ Energies. However, there was nothing in the meeting packet provided for the public to see what the council is considering. I support the project. I think the least we could do is give them consideration. I, as an individual and as a businessman, don't want any new business hampered, but I have no idea what you guys are going to be considering. When you have an item on the agenda, and it says possible approval of an agreement, that agreement must be presented 3 days prior to the meeting. You got a violation possibly with the Nevada Open Meeting Law. On other items, Mr. Mayor, the water tap to my family's property located on 729 and 733 Great Basin Boulevard have not been put in the front of the property. Again, if they've been put in, I can't locate them or the meter pits. The sewer tap at 729 Great Basin Boulevard has not been put in the front of the property. The city and the state NDOT are now following the city code. Services must be in front of the property, not down the street in front of the adjoining lot and in front of the access coming off of Great Basin Boulevard. They're causing me problems for no reason, Mr. Mayor. I want those discrepancies rectified and corrected. I checked the 2 properties daily and have not found any changes. I need some answers. Mr. Mayor, with the NDOT project, I had access to the side of my property on the west end, which I documented. They took that away and instead put in a utility box, 7 inches higher than the new curb and gutter. When I complained about the utility box being up too high, they said, don't worry, we're not through yet. They came back and put in another 7-inch curb and gutter on top of the first one. Now I have a 1-foot drop at the end of the property, and that's not going to cut it. That's a violation of the code. It's a violation of ADA. We need to correct that before those people leave. I want access to my property. I want to be able to park alongside like I used to in the past. I was told I needed a permit. I've asked for that permit several times now. I see others parking alongside their property behind the sidewalk. Why am I being treated any differently? I want some answers, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I took care of the discrepancies on one of my properties, yet I see that Mr. Flangus has yet to correct the discrepancies on his. The same with Mr. Spear,
Thank you,
same
sir.
with Mr. Allworth. We need to be consistent, Mr. Mayor, and I want some answers.
Any other public comment? Hearing and seeing none, we'll close public comment and move on to item 3, items for discussion and possible action only of the Ely City Council. Item 1, council members, City Attorney Cahoon, discussion for possible action. Approval of easement agreement between City of Ely and R+ Energies for the purposes of constructing the reservoir-based energy storage project located 8 miles north of Ely. I'd like to take this opportunity to disclose that I'm an employee of the Nevada Northern Railway. I'm also an employee of a construction company who does business with the drilling company who does business with R+ Energies. As such, I'm disclosing that. I'm not a voting member of this body. I'd like to also add what we are doing today and what we're not doing today. For consideration today is not approval of this pump water storage project. What is on the table here is granting access for a drill site to do a test drilling for geotechnical surveys. That's the only thing that's on the table at the moment. That being the case, I would like to voice some displeasure about not being contacted, that the city wasn't contacted as a property owner. I realize this is not the final approval of this project, but if the processes that are to be in place are not functioning at this point in the project, I have serious concerns about how they're functioning further down the road as this project progresses. The city was never contacted, to my knowledge, with the environmental study for this phase of the project. And the reason we're having this emergency meeting is to grant access that should have been granted and approached, and the city should have been approached weeks and months ago. We're doing our best to kind of bob and weave and to help business out here. I don't know that I have anything necessarily against this project or for this project either. But we need to make sure that the stakeholders are involved and involved in the way that they should be. With that, I will open this item for discussion and questions and thoughts from the council.
Do I have, as a proponent, opportunity to give an update?
I will in just a minute. Give just a second. Any thoughts from the council that we need to add before we have an update from our listeners?
Yes, I also agree. I think that there's not enough information. I think we need to talk about this more, hear more from our attorneys. I think that with some information that I have, that some things might not be right, some maps might be incorrect, and I just think as a council member, I would like to have much more confirmation and counsel with my fellow council members, because this just sort of came up out of nowhere. And I think that we've had a lot of citizens doing a lot of watching and steadfast trying to find out how this affects us and what's going on. So I still feel like I need much more information on this project and conversation.
I echo exact sentiments of the mayor and Councilwoman Williams Harper. I came home, I looked on my computer, I printed one of these. 5 minutes later, I get a revision 2, maybe a few more minutes, you know. And I didn't bring the first one to look at it, but we compared the very broad one there. 22 minutes is all I had from the time I got down here to review this. And I am not against feasibility of something, you know, for example, mining, which my background was in, but you have to do feasibility so the project's worthy. But a lot of people in doing the mining are all notified, we're going to disturb the land, access roads, ranchers, farmers, everything. The city was overlooked on this, and to me, it was a major foul. You know, we are a small city, but we have a lot of pride, and we were overlooked clearly without a doubt. And at the last minute to get a proposal that we're supposed to absorb and understand, I think it's, I honestly cannot say I have not digested this, read this at all. I looked at a few high points on it. You know, and there's just so much. I look at the drawing, you know, the map of where this borehole one's going to be. It looks like it's right on the track. You know, I mean, they want to use the right-of-way, the road, to go do it. But again, you know, I know the gentlemen are here, maybe they could ask it. Maybe we need to enlarge that. So they're going to do a test hole. There's a test hole right on the track, which means if it comes to their satisfaction where they put this 24-foot pipe, it's going to be underground. Is that going to disturb our rail bed foundation? You know, it goes forever, our rights all the way down. It's not very clear to me. You know, I know where the road is. I drove out there and looked, but I don't know. There's not enough information for me. Maybe they can expand a little bit on how close the distance-wise from the rail and our road access right away is this borehole going to go, and what's the impact if it's successful?
Is there anything to add there, Councilman Spirit?
Yeah, I had the same thing. I didn't have a whole lot of time to digest this. I read the first one, and the second one I got here. The only thing I could really find any different is that they removed the performance bond. $500,000 was on the first one, and second one. But I have a whole lot of problems with this. Number one is the exclusion of the city of Ely. And then I know that the county has went after this and supported it totally, but the tax revenues are all be going to the county. That's about 1,600 and something people are going to be employed.
Councilman,
1660.
Councilman Spear, I don't mean to interrupt you here, but once again, this kind of an issue is not what's on the agenda today.
I think our infrastructure is, and I think it's.
Our infrastructure is, and the infrastructure that's on the agenda today is that section of road that they need to cross to access this drill site.
All right.
And that's all we have on the agenda.
I really want this in a public meeting. We've been ignored totally on this deal.
Councilman Flangus, is there anything you'd like to add?
Well, I'm sorry to say, but I'm in agreement with the other members of the council. We have never been talked to as a governing body over anything. We're supposed to attend their meeting to comprehend as to what they want, and now they're coming to us for what they want. I'm sorry, I totally disagree with the theory that they have here at this time. And in order to get answers to a lot of questions that have to be asked and answered that are not on this document, will be, as far as I'm concerned, my recommendation at this point is to not approve anything of allowing them to use roads or anything within the service area of the city, the railroad or the streets out there, until we know exactly what's going on.
Attorney Cahoon, could you give a synopsis of this agreement that's sitting in front of us here?
Yes, Mayor, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so the agreement essentially establishes the company's obligations to maintain and repair any damage to the roads, and it leaves the city with as little obligation or liability as possible. That was the intent of drafting it. And so, are there any questions you may have, or any specific questions on the specific provisions?
I had a question. I mean, I did see in there that there was the bond requirement. There was also a fee requirement of $700 a day. Is that typical, or where was that figure pulled from?
So that amount, I actually inquired with BJ, our city engineer, and he figured that a reasonable amount would be somewhere in that range.
Just for the days that they're using that road, is that correct?
Correct.
It's not $700 a day for the duration of the agreement.
Well, I believe that the duration of the agreement, the road will be used every day throughout the duration of the agreement. So technically, it would be every day of the agreement.
Okay. Are there any other questions for the attorney about this agreement that he could answer for us?
Isn't it a 10-day agreement, isn't it? I mean, it expired on November 1st, 2021.
Well,
And it's got a five-day notice of cancellation in it, so we're going to be halfway through before we can ever cancel it. I think we should have had this earlier. I mean, it is this. When I first seen cancellation November 1st, 2021, I thought that's impossible because but evidently everything's here ready to go, and so that's why we're having a special meeting. That's right. 5-day cancellation, $700 a day is still in there while they're using it, but they dropped it wrong.
did you have another question?
No,
The question you had about the
statement.
bond. You had the question about the
Yeah, the
second
bond
page.
was in the first one for $500,000, and they destroyed some of that track by going over with heavy equipment, gosh knows, but it says in there that they will restore it to our satisfaction within 1 day. I can't remember all of it. We didn't have much time to go through this thing.
Right.
But I think bonds should be posted, especially when we're talking about a historical railroad bed. The tracks on that, I mean, and it's going to be going right alongside of it. I I think you only cross it one time, yeah. So that's the only time.
Attorney Cahoon, was the bond removed from the second revision?
Yes. It's a bond is in there.
The bond amount was removed, but the provision.
The provisions
for
for
the
the
bond
bond.
is still there.
Okay, I understand.
I have a question for the attorney.
Yeah, go ahead.
Leo, this is Jim. When did you receive this contract?
Sorry.
The date, time, whatever?
Yeah. When did I receive? I was sent a sort of a form agreement sometime last week, and then I drafted this agreement based on that other agreement. Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, you had a form agreement and you drafted what we have in front of us now?
That's correct.
Okay, then I have a question, I'm sure that Luigi will come to the mic when we're ready for him. Is why were we, and this isn't a question for you, Mr. Attorney, why was the city not included in this whole first go-around? How come we were overlooked? Is the question I have for them when we get to that point. I mean,
If there are no other questions for, if there are no other, it's okay. If there are no other questions at the moment for the attorney, we'll have Mr. Luigi come up and give his report. We can ask some questions of you.
Yeah, thank you for the record. Thank you, Mayor and council members. For the record, my name is Luigi Resta. I'm the president of R Plus Energies and the president of R Plus Hydrant behind this project. There's been a lot of different topics brought up. I can't answer all of them, but to address a few of them, you know, the man camp at the very beginning was a mistake to propose the man camp on the Duck Creek side. I recognize that, and that was very early on in the development. As far as water rights, you know, for the county, the county does possess the 24,000 acre feet of water rights that is intended for industrial use, and the mine has recently been using it. They ended that obligation this year. It is a use it or lose it industrial rights or water rights. So our intention is to help with this project, keep the water here in the valley and not to adversely affect the farmers from a water perspective. But our agreement will help keep those water rights here. As far as being consulted, you know, over time, we have made efforts. We haven't probably made as many efforts as we could to come before this body, you know, in a public way. But 2 years ago or a year and a half ago, we proposed a development service agreement with the city of Ely for the project, and the development service agreement that laid out that we would be, the project would be responsible for any costs incurred as a result of activity by the city and by the county. We also submitted a conditional use permit to the city, to the planning commission for review for the project to say, okay, we want everybody's input into this project, even at the early stage. Both of those were ultimately decided by the city and by the DA and by the city, by the attorney, to not move forward with it. But we did put those forward, so we have tried. We have.
I don't think that's the question.
I understand. I just want to go on record because there was a lot of things said. So we will continue to try and do more, and this is really one of the phases of development. So where we are today is HDR is a consultant for us. They're not the EPC building the whole project, but they're doing the environmental licensing and permitting. They studied the access route for the borehole locations, which is the work that we're doing right now. There's 3 boreholes that are identified that need to be, you know, for exploration purposes. One up on top of the Duck Creek side, which we're not doing. Borehole 2, which is halfway up the mountain, which you guys probably see the lights on right now. They're working 24 hours a day. And then borehole 1, this was a process that was done through BLM, through an EA process, and they were, you know, managing that process. But we did the environmental studies. They submitted it as part of the final permit. You know, we had thought that we were entirely on BLM property, and that's why this came very late, because we thought, and I think BLM did as well, that road that we're accessing was on BLM property. So originally in the EA, the access to borehole 2 was going to take place at a place where the western rail that is not in service right now, we were going to cross over that and go to the borehole 2 and, or one location on BLM property.